It begins with a photograph taken from orbit, an endless expanse of sand stretching across North Africa, a landscape so vast and uniform it feels almost permanent, as if it has always been this way. And yet, buried beneath that uniformity, there are faint lines, ancient riverbeds, dry and silent, cutting through the desert like ghosts of something that no longer exists. The Sahara Desert is the largest hot desert on Earth, a place defined by absence of water, of vegetation, of life. But the strange part is this: those empty river channels are real, and they are not small. Some of them are wider than modern rivers, stretching for hundreds of kilometers, suggesting not a brief moment of rain, but a sustained, flowing system, something that once resembled a living landscape. The official explanation is well established. Thousands of years ago, due to shifts in Earth's orbit and the gradual movement of monsoon systems, the Sahara experienced what scientists call the African humid period. During this time, the region was significantly wetter, covered in grasslands, lakes, and scattered forests. It was not a desert, but a green environment capable of supporting animals and human populations. This is not speculation. It is supported by sediment cores, fossil records, and satellite imagery. And yet, when you begin to look closer, the simplicity of this explanation starts to feel incomplete, not incorrect, but perhaps insufficient in capturing the full scale of what existed there. Because the evidence does not just suggest a green Sahara, it suggests something more structured. Across the desert, researchers have discovered thousands of stone formations, circles, lines, and enclosures visible only from above. These are often referred to as desert kites or stone complexes, and while many are believed to be ancient hunting traps, their sheer number and organization hint at a level of planning that feels coordinated. Then there are the cave paintings. Deep within regions like Tassili Nanager, there are vivid depictions of people swimming in what is now one of the driest places on Earth. These are not symbolic drawings, they are detailed and deliberate, showing bodies in motion, surrounded by what appears to be water. Alongside them are images of cattle, vegetation, and daily life, suggesting not a temporary migration, but a stable existence. The accepted view is that these paintings reflect a time when the climate allowed such scenes to exist. But the question that quietly emerges is not whether water was present, but how much and for how long. Because when satellite technology began mapping the subsurface of the Sahara, something unexpected appeared. Beneath the sand are the outlines of ancient lakes, massive ones. One of them, known as Mega Lake Chad, may have once been larger than the Caspian Sea. Around these ancient shorelines, archaeologists have found tools, settlements, and burial sites indicating prolonged human activity, not just survival, but development. And this is where the pattern begins to shift. When you combine the river systems, the lakes, the settlements, and the organized stone structures, a different image starts to form. Not just a green landscape, but a network. A region that may have supported not isolated groups, but interconnected communities, possibly over thousands of years. Still, the transition from green to desert is understood to be gradual, driven by natural cycles. There is no need, scientifically, to invoke anything beyond climate change. And yet, the speed of this transformation, at least in certain models, appears surprisingly rapid, with some areas drying out within a few centuries. Which raises a quieter question. If a landscape capable of sustaining large populations can disappear within a relatively short geological moment, what traces would remain, and how much of that trace would survive under layers of shifting sand? Even more curious is how little of this is commonly discussed outside of academic circles.
The Sahara is often presented as an ancient, unchanging desert, when in reality, its past is dynamic, almost unstable, oscillating between extremes over tens of thousands of years. And perhaps that's what makes it so easy to overlook, because when we think of lost civilizations, we imagine ruins, stone cities, visible structures, something that resists time. But what if a civilization existed in a place where the environment itself does not preserve, but erases? What if the absence we see today is not just the result of natural change, but the quiet removal of far more complex than we assume? There is no definitive evidence of a lost civilization in the Sahara in the traditional sense, no singular discovery that confirms it. But there is a growing collection of fragments, environmental, archaeological, and visual, that when placed by each other suggest a past that feels underexplored, not disproven, not hidden, just incomplete. And maybe that's the most unsettling part, because if an entire habitable world can fade into desert, leaving behind only faint impressions visible from space, then the question is not just what the Sahara used to be, but how many other places on Earth have already been forgotten simply because we no longer recognize what we're looking at.